Morning everybody, welcome to this week's Technique Tuesday. What's it like in Dorset today? The sunshine's gone today, we've got some rain, but my garden is thrilled that it's getting rained on finally. I hope that whatever the weather is where you are, that you're able to keep yourself safe and occupied. Technique Tuesday, just in case you don't know what Technique Tuesday is something that I dreamt up, I think it's about a year ago now, because I thought it would be nice every Tuesday, as regular as I possibly could, to share some of the techniques that I know, to answer some of your questions. And what I was doing was recording some video and then putting it out and scheduling it, because very often I was on the road. But of course now I'm in my studio and it means that I get the opportunity to go live now. So what we're going to do this morning is I'm going to share a project with you that is suitable for all ages and all abilities. You don't need to paint along if you don't want to. We will archive this and I'll pop it over on my blog and I'll tell you more about that later. But what you can do is paint along, or you can watch it on archive and catch up, entirely up to you. What I will try and do as we go this morning is, if you've got any comments, or if you've got anything that you would like to share, then stick it into the Facebook comments and I will try to get to it as soon as I can. I'm trying to kind of use all of the technology that's in front of me at the moment. So my apologies if I look away from the camera or I look down, all of those kind of things. I'm just trying to acknowledge. I can already see that I've got lots of people commenting this morning. Who have we got? Who has said good morning to me this morning? Lovely Ali, Pat, Janice, Anne. Yes, I can see that some of you have got some rain as well. Lovely Jan in Wales. Oh gosh, we've got another Alison. Alison's a go-go this morning. Sandra, good morning. Jill, morning. Laurie. Oh gosh, you're all tuning in. Thanks very much. Inga, Carolyn, thank you all so much for tuning in this morning. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to refresh some of the technology that is around me, and then we'll get going. So one of the things that I really wanted to do in today's project was use the theme. Every Monday I set a theme for the week, which you can use as a bit of a starting point if you want to, or you can use it in subsequent projects that you're doing. It's entirely up to you what you do with that. This week I thought we'd do rainbow. Now rainbows have obviously been in the news at the moment as we're on lockdown. It's something that people are doing. They're putting rainbows in windows of their houses. Rainbow is a symbol of hope. And I thought it was a really good excuse to bring something very positive to my project today, and then we can have a chat about all the sorts of things that you can do with that. So let's switch over to my overhead camera, and you'll then be able to see a little example of one of the things that we're going to do. So today is incredibly experimental because we are going to be using Brusho. Now, if you don't know what Brusho is, I will get to that in just a second. First thing I want to do is to just very quickly run through the equipment that you're going to need for this project. So you're definitely going to need some watercolour paper or some heavy stock card or something like that so that you can paint on it. If it's watercolour paper, that's great because obviously that's designed to accept water. But if it's not, don't worry. Any kind of mount board, pieces of card, any card making things that you've got out there, they will work well too. So I've got that, and I've got it set up over a piece of kitchen roll. I'll describe why I'm doing that in just a little bit. You're also going to need some Brusho powders. I've got these here on the right hand side. Now I've got 5 colours here. It really doesn't matter, and you'll see what we are going to do is we're going to be using the Brusho to kind of get a tree theme going on. But regardless of the fact that it's trees, I've still got my spectrum colours here. So I've got a red, a yellow, a green, a blue and a violet. I've kind of missed out orange in the spectrum, and I've missed out indigo as well because I wanted to do it on a fairly small piece of paper and get all of those colours in. Now it really doesn't matter. Don't think that the success of your project stands and falls on you matching the colours that I've got. It really doesn't. But if you do want to look excuse me, if you do want to know what colours I've got brilliant red, gamboge, leaf green, cobalt blue and violet. And I promise you, I picked those colours out because they were the first ones I put my hand on in my box. Some other things you're going to need as well. You're going to need a pot of water. You're also going to need a spray bottle. Any spray bottle will do. And then I've got a few things down here that look kind of interesting as well. I've got an ordinary pencil. I've got a brush. Again, doesn't have to be anything special. I've got quite a small brush today, but you can have a large brush or a small brush, whatever you like. I've got two different kinds of pen here. Whilst there are those four there, they're all the same. They're a waterproof sketching pen. So that is a sketching pen that when I draw with it, those lines are not going to run when I wet them. And then over here, I've got a water-soluble sketching pen, which when I draw with it and wet it, that colour is going to run. And then I've got pretty much the most important part of the show today, which is a coffee stirrer. Now, again, the success of your project is not going to stand and fall on you having a coffee stirrer. You might have a lolly stick, you might have a little bamboo skewer, you might have even the handle of a teaspoon is useful for use with Brusho, but I'll describe more of that later. So hopefully you've got some of those things. Again, it really doesn't matter. It does not matter at all whether you've got those exact materials or whether you are just thinking, oh, what have I got in the house that I can run and find? What I would love you to do is for you to deviate from what I've suggested and then you tell me how successful it was, because that's what I do. That's what it's all about. It's about finding materials, experimenting with them and then sharing the results that you've got out of it. So what is Brusho? This little product, I have to say, I was a bit late to the party with this product. I find myself in that situation an awful lot. My work is really experimental and I love to try new things out, and actually I came across Brusho as a way of dyeing aluminium. I attended a workshop and I found this product. The tutor was sprinkling it onto aluminium and then heat setting it so that it dyed the metal. And I thought, oh, wouldn't that be fantastic if I can sprinkle that on my paintings? And of course came home, researched it. Loads of artists have done that before. There's lots of brilliant artists out there that use Brusho. I love it because it comes in a powder format. Now, if you make this up into an ink, which you can do, you can mix it with water and it makes beautiful jewel-like colours in an ink. You can use it that way, you can use it with a brush or a dip pen, but because it's in a powder, one of my favourite techniques is to sprinkle it onto a surface and then see what happens, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. So let's switch you back to my overhead camera and you can see a little bit of evidence of a project that I kind of started. So because we're live today, I thought I better have some things prepared, and I have got 2 or 3 things around. You can see this amazing pattern that sprinkling the powder on creates, and that's going to be the first part of our project today. So let's put this to one side, and there's my plain piece of watercolour paper. Now there's a couple of things to think about if you are using Brusho. I know that there'll be lots of you out there kind of screaming and shouting at the computer saying, Ali, don't forget to tell them that it does go everywhere, and don't forget to tell them that if you get it onto your clothing then it might stain. So just be sensible with it, use an apron. One of the things that I have got down, you see I've got my piece of watercolour paper over the top of some kitchen roll, because what I don't want to happen is if I just had my watercolour paper on my drawing board, I'd then have to be cleaning my drawing board afterwards, and me and cleaning don't get on really. So I've put some kitchen roll down so that when I sprinkle the powder on in just a second, if it goes anywhere other than the watercolour paper, I can just roll that kitchen roll up and throw it away. I've got my piece of paper here, and I've got my Brusho powders all on the right hand side, all ready to go. Now there's lots of schools of thought with the Brusho powders as to how you can get them onto the paper. Some people like to take the lids and they like to punch a hole in the top and sprinkle it on a bit like a salt and pepper shaker. That's one way of doing it. Now that's not a way that I particularly like, just simply because I get really frustrated and I can't get enough powder down in time. But that doesn't mean that it won't work for you. The way that I like to get it down is this. This is why I was saying this is going to be the star of the show today. I like to get it on with a coffee stirrer. I used to suggest that you do it with a dry brush, but I've since realised that if you use a coffee stirrer, you can tap the coffee stirrer over the top of your paper when it's covered in powder and you get a nice distribution on there. Then what I'm going to do is spray it with a spray bottle. So should we give it a go and see how we get on? I'm not really going to think too hard about where my colour is going. Okay, I might want a sort of vague spectrum. I might start with red here and go through the colours. But if you fancy sprinkling your powder onto your paper, then that's definitely what you should do. So here is my brilliant red. Now at home, what I would suggest you do is move your paper to one side, and when you go to stir the pot, which is what I'm going to do in just a second, do it away from your piece of paper, just in case. So what I do is I take my coffee stirrer and I pop it into the pot of powder and I give it a good stir. Now you will find that Brusho powders vary in their consistency. You will find that some are really fine and dusty, and you'll find that some are quite granular. That's absolutely okay. You've just got to experiment, see what you get. So you can already see, let me move my watercolour paper across a little bit. I've got a few little specks of red down here. Now I'm going to very lightly tap my coffee stirrer over the top of my surface. Now I know from past experience that this red is really strong and really bright. And you might be peering at your camera, at your screen right now, thinking, well, Ali, you haven't really got an awful lot down there. I have. I really have. And I can't impress upon you enough how less is more. So I've got that little bit of powder there. Now, I could tap this back into the pot if I wanted to. I'm actually going to use a bit of kitchen roll to clean off my coffee stirrer. Now, I have to say, I have to admit, if I wasn't doing this live on social media for you right now, I'd be sticking this coffee stirrer straight into the next colour. So if that's what you prefer to do, then don't worry about it too much. Here is my yellow, here is the gamboge, and I'm going to give it a stir again and pull out the coffee stirrer and tap it very lightly next door to that brilliant red. So there goes my gamboge. Give it a bit of a clean, and then let's go into the leaf green. Now, just a word about the leaf green. When you open some of the pots of Brusho, you may find that the colour of the powder isn't what you anticipate the colour to be. So it's, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, looks very yellow in the pot, and you're thinking, well, that's not green at all. But you have to think about it logically. To make up a green, you've got particles of yellow in there and you've got particles of blue in there. And I promise you, when you give them a really good stir and sprinkled them onto the paper, you will discover that when you spray it, you've got a beautiful, really gorgeous green. I love the leaf green. So that's got that one down. I'm going to put a little bit more. This is quite a fine powder, the leaf green. So I'm going to pop that down. I'm going to put a little bit more in. There we go. Let's put that to one side. Clean off my coffee stirrer. And then now we've got the cobalt blue. The cobalt blue is a bit more granular and quite a strong colour. You can see it very clearly on the coffee stirrer there. Giving that a good old tap around. That's quite a fine one. It kind of comes off in lines, the cobalt blue. This is what's interesting about experimenting in this way. You get to learn what your materials do. And I've just realised I put that straight in the violet without cleaning it off. Never mind. Never mind, it'll just go to prove that it's not the end of the world if you do that. So let's pick up some of the violet. Ooh, I put a lot down. There we go. And there goes the violet on the end of the paper. Now, you can probably see it fairly clearly in the camera, but I know that if you've not used Brusho before, I know you're thinking, gosh, that doesn't look like a lot. Perhaps I'm going to be really disappointed when I come to spray it, but let's give it a go, shall we? So I've got my spray bottle. I'm just going to spray it away from the camera to make sure that it's got a nice fine spray. And in order to get that kind of lovely sprinkled, dappled effect, I'm going to make sure that I spray from a distance. My camera might be jumping in and out at the moment because it's trying to focus on my hand. But I'm definitely not going to spray down here, because if I do that, all that's going to happen is the air from the spray bottle is going to push all of the particles away. So I'm going to spray from on high. And let's give it a go and see what we've got. Look at that red. Isn't that exciting? And then we've got the gamboge next door. Then there's that lovely leaf green. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? And then we've got the cobalt blue. And then we've got the violet at the end. So you can see quite quickly how you can get a lovely dappled effect. And obviously the more powder you put down, the more intense the effect is going to be. And the less powder that you put down, the more subtle it's going to be. Some of the colours do spread. You can see that red is really quite strong. I probably should have put a bit more of that down. But hey, never mind. That's what experimenting is all about. I can go back in with a bit of kitchen roll just to mop up anything that I don't like the look of, but be very aware that you're going to pick Brusho up onto your kitchen roll. So if you went back and blotted somewhere else, you're going to move it across. And also be aware that the minute that you spray your Brusho powder, it fixes in an instant. It kind of latches onto the surface and stays there. So it's not like watercolour where you get that opportunity to lift some of the colour off. That is going to stay there. Lifting it out and getting rid of it is another technique for another time. Now if I pop that to one side just for a second, and I'm running out of space on my desk, I'm not going to lie, you can see the residue that I've got all the way around. If I was working on my drawing board, I'd then have to be cleaning my drawing board, and that gets a bit boring. So all I can do is pop those to one side, and there you go, my drawing board's nice and clean. So let's show you, because I've been a bit sneaky, and I have done some things ahead of time. Here's a very similar version to the one that I've just done, where you've got the red, the gamboge, the leaf green, the cobalt blue, and the violet. And I've also got another one here on a bigger piece of paper where I really went to town on it. And I've got the red, I've got the yellow, the green, the blue, and the violet there too. I've also got another one here which is going to form the start of my demonstration in just a second, where I sprinkled them on, but instead of doing it this way on, I did it this way on. So I've got bands of colour coming down. And of course you could choose, couldn't you, whether you have red at the top or red at the bottom. All sorts of things you can do. What I would recommend is that you sprinkle the colour onto the surface and then see what you've got, because that's more interesting. So what I'm going to do, let's switch it back to my face. Sorry about that, everybody. This is the opportunity, if you are painting along at home this morning, for you to go and get a hairdryer and just give it a bit of a blast. And I'm going to give you a couple of moments to do that, because I can see that there's been kind of questions and all sorts of things coming in. So I'll, whilst you all go and dry them, I'm going to go through some of the hellos and things that I've got. Oh gosh, so many people saying hello. Good morning, everybody. I apologise if I didn't say good morning to you. I've got some real Brusho fans out there. Yes, Lorna has said, I'm glad I'm not the only one with no nails. Now, I usually have beautifully manicured hands, and if my manicurist is watching, she's probably weeping right now. And then, of course, I did quite a bit of gardening, so my nails are shot away. So concentrate on the Brusho and not what my fingers look like. We've got, oh, lovely Claire. Good morning, Claire. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now, what's Melanie said? Melanie said, hi all. I managed to drop a pot of blue everywhere a few weeks ago. My hands were stained for days, but luckily the carpet was okay. Oh, my goodness. Yes, Brusho and soft furnishings do not mix. If you're going to do it, particularly if you're doing this project with some children today, then a nice bit of plastic on the floor or somewhere that you can clean up really easily. It does go on your hands and you will stain it, and you should have seen me yesterday after I was preparing for this demonstration. I had spectrum coloured hands, but it doesn't hurt. It's not toxic at all, so don't worry about the dust part of it. Don't worry about using it with children. They are going to get it on their hands. It's going to take a couple of washes. I like the excuse that I've got to have a good bath afterwards to get it off. Margaret, that's more controlled than shaking it out. Oh, brilliant. Oh, and June says as well, yes, using a coffee stirrer. That's good. That's fantastic then. I've been able to share that bit. Yes, Melanie's saying, love this bit, never know what appears. No, you really don't, do you? You can sprinkle it and think that you know where it's going, but you don't. June said I could sit for hours sprinkling and spraying. It might be a sprinkling and spraying day. Karen, good morning, Karen. I really shouldn't be watching this. Now I want to buy lots of Brusho. Sorry about that. Well, sorry, not sorry, because it's too much fun. Yes, we've got all sorts of things. Oh my goodness. Can I use something I have no brush? What we're going to do actually is, because you've got a spray bottle, you don't have to do the bit that we're going to do with a brush in a minute. You'll see in just a second. Hi Ali, love Brusho. Gosh, right, Linda, okay, so hasn't used Brusho before. Hopefully this will crack the back of that and give you a bit of an insight. But honestly, get some paper, get something that doesn't matter to start with, and maybe the back of an old painting that you're not that pleased with, or just something that you can experiment with and see how you get on. So if you are painting along at home, I hope that you've had a chance to dry it now. There's lots of you out there. Thank you for tuning in. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the next part of the project, what you can do with those. So let's go back to my overhead shot. And you can see that I've got, just to do a bit of a recap, I've got the two pieces of paper here. I've got this larger piece of paper and I've sprinkled the Brusho in at the top. And I've got this piece of paper here where I've already started a bit of my demonstration, and I've got the spectrum colours sprinkled into bands. So I thought it would be interesting to use these patterns that we've got today as trees. So I'm going to start with this one, and silver birch trees, or those sorts of trees where the trunk is a lot more interesting than the actual foliage. They're a real favourite of mine, and I love to paint them. And what's lovely is that they're not too difficult to do. So you can start off with a pencil if you want to. I'm actually going to go straight in with a sketching pen. Now, like I say, this is a waterproof sketching pen. This is the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen. These are one of my favourites. There's 2 or 3 sketching pens that I really like. This I like for one of the other techniques that you're going to see in a second. I'm just going to draw 2 parallel lines. Let's do it kind of close to this one. So I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to use a bit of a Morse code dot dash method to draw a line from the top to the bottom. And then I'm going to draw another line in just next to it. Really simple. And it doesn't have to match the first one. It doesn't matter if it's a bit narrow in places or a bit wide in places. What's more important is that you've got the parallel lines. Now, I could use this sketching pen for the texture, those kind of the way that the bark wraps its way around the trunk of the tree. I could do it with that, but I'm actually going to do it with the same brand of pen. So this is the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen, but instead of being fine, it has a brush tip to it. And that's one of the things that we're going to use it for now. So you can use it just on the end as a bit of a fine line, or like I'm going to do is I'm going to use the side of it in various ways to get that texture on. And all I'm after is a sense that this tree has got bark on it. I can move my hand around, I can sweep it across, but as you can probably see, I'm really not being neat and tidy with it whatsoever. I'm just getting those marks in. I'm not pressing very hard at all. You're probably noticing that I'm not holding my pen like this. I'm actually holding it over the top. And I'm letting the pen skip across the surface, doing the thing that it does best. I'm trying so hard not to make regular marks. I'm trying to make them kind of a bit irregular and natural. Now that pen, because they are waterproof, those marks are not going to run when I do what it is that I'm about to do. This is the pen that I'm going to use now. This is made by Stabilo, but you don't have to have a Stabilo pen. Any of the kind of felt tip pens that are designed to wash out of your clothes will do this same technique. It doesn't necessarily have to say that it's water soluble, But if it says suitable for children or will wash out of your clothes, all of those kind of things will do the job. Now I'm going to go back over in a similar way with this pen, making those scribbly marks both on the side and on the tip. But here and there, because I know that pen runs, I'm going to take a brush and a little bit of water. I won't need an awful lot. And then I can move some of that pen to create a shadow. And what that does then is start to make our tree much more three-dimensional. So let's put a little bit of it down this side too. You won't need a lot. That whole kind of less is more thing is definitely something that you need to be thinking about in this project. You may start to move some of the Brusho that's underneath as well, but I don't think that's a problem myself. You can see I've done it there. I've got a bit of the green in the blue. I think that just adds to the texture, if I'm honest. And let's finish down here right at the bottom, getting a bit of that texture in too. So you can see after you've done your Brusho and you sprinkled it on and you've let it dry, this is a lovely quick way of getting some nice dark shadows in for a tree trunk. Now if you wanted to get some branches in too, you can see I've started one this side. You could do it with the waterproof pen, you could do it with the water soluble pen. I think I'm going to have a go with the water soluble pen because I'm in that kind of mood today. And I'm going to use my pen upright, so I'm not going to try and carefully draw the branches in. I'm going to adopt something called wiggle and flick, okay? I'm going to start it at the edge of my tree and I'm going to wiggle it along and then flick the end. And let's join that up to the tree a little bit more. So let's do that again, wiggle and flick. And let's do another wiggle and a flick going off the top. And then I can go back in with my brush because this is the water soluble version, and I can use the water to blend the branch into the trunk of my tree. So that's one way of doing the silver birch type tree trunks. I also thought that it might be fun to have a quick look at this version of the Brusho, where you can see I've kind of already got tree shapes, and it looks like they do where I am at the moment, they're just starting to come into leaf. And I thought it might be fun to see if we could add some trunks to them and some branches to kind of pull them together. So where's my favourite pen? There it is. So this is the waterproof pen. Don't forget that if you're not confident with getting the trunks of the trees in, then draw them in pencil first. Let's do one over on the red because I really like this. It looks like a sort of maple tree or something similar. And I'm going to start at the bottom. Let's start here with the kind of the base of my trunk, and then I'm going to work my way up and kind of into that foliage. Let's do another one up a bit further. So I'm still doing that wiggle and flick. Let's do a little bit over here. I don't want to make the trunk too wide. I don't want it to be a heavy version. And let's do a little bit. Oh, now I've got an even number, so you know, anybody that knows me knows that makes my head hurt. So I've got 5 going in there. I could do a little bit of brush pen in there. I could add with my waterproof brush pen just to make sure that I've got some real kind of strong shapes going in. Let's put some of those in and up, and you can kind of keep going. With this, it's a little bit addictive, I must warn you. When you start to get to paint trees and they start to look realistic, you can be putting branches of trees in for hours. Well, there we go, there's my water soluble pen. And then I'm going to fill in some of the gaps with my water soluble pen. And I'm going to do 2 things, actually a bit more, honestly, Ali. I keep telling people not to faff and then I go and do it myself. I'm going to put a little bit more in, and then I'm going to do 2 things with this one just to give you some ideas for experimenting. Down here on the trunk, I'm going to use my wet brush to blend some of that colour in together so I get that nice kind of solid trunk. Might just put a little bit more actually down on the ground and use my wet brush to blend that out. Oh, I'm pleased with that, that's looking quite good. That's not too shabby at all. mop that little bit of water up. And then up here, I'm going to make my branches a little bit thicker and a little bit more substantial so that they can actually hold this tree up. But up here, where I've got some of the water-soluble pen, I'm going to go back to my spray bottle again and give it a little bit of a spritz, a very light spritz. And what that will do is that it will move the Brusho again. Any of the Brusho that I didn't get the first time round with my spritz will move. And then, as you can probably see, it's moving the water-soluble pen too. So it's kind of blending the two together. And then I can use my brush or my kitchen roll or whatever it is I feel the most comfortable with to start bringing some of those shapes together. And hopefully that will give you confidence that you can do the foliage of your trees first, and then you can put the branches in second. So there's the two projects for you. Side by side, we've got our Brusho that we sprinkled on in our lovely, beautiful rainbow colours. And then we used two kinds of pen to draw in one where the lines were going to stay put and one where the lines are able to be blended out. So, I hope you enjoyed that this morning. I thought the other thing that I would do is offer some suggestions with what you could do with these paintings, because they do have a rainbow theme. As we know, rainbows are a bit of a symbol of hope at the moment, and I know even where I am, I've seen some really lovely rainbows cut out of paper and all sorts of things. So I thought it might be useful for things that you could do with your paintings. You could, of course, pop it up in the window. We've all seen the rainbow shapes, that kind of lovely arc going up. But there's no reason at all why you can't use your window as a little bit of an exhibition space with a nice rainbow theme. Put them up in your window and be really, really proud of them. You could, of course, if you know somebody is out there and they're struggling or their job is a bit tough, if you know somebody on the front line in the NHS or similar, you might be thinking, do you know what can I do to give them a little bit of a pick-me-up? Why not make them a card? Take some watercolour paper, fold it in half, do your beautiful rainbow picture on the front of it, write a sentiment in it, and then send it to somebody who you think needs a bit of a pick-me-up. And of course, the other thing that you could do is you could do your painting and you could take a photograph of it and you could use it as your avatar on social media so that people know that you paint. Always a nice thing to be able to say that you can do. And it's just that tiny little beacon of hope for everybody. So I just want to go back through the messages and see if there's any questions that anybody's got. Oh, gosh. Oh, yes. Oh, gosh. Right. Okay. Let me say, I have thumbtack in the pots to sprinkle them. Yes. Very good idea. If you do the technique of punching a hole in the top of your Brusho pots, use a thumbtack or a map pin or something else to plug the hole back up. Otherwise, you'll have Brusho everywhere. Steph says, sorry, meant Brusho. Anything else I can use? If you've got any of those kind of watercolour sticks, so things like ink tents or art bar or any of those kind of things, and you've got a little grater, like a nutmeg grater or something like that, you can hold the grater over the top of your watercolour paper, grate it on the top, and then give it a spritz. Works very similarly. Sandra, watching whilst working. Love Brusho, used it for the first time in my first course with you at the SAA. Good morning, Sandra. Yes, you may know, some of you out there, that I am very proud to be an SAA demonstrator, and I do get to go up to HQ now and again and share some of my Brusho techniques. Did it with Ali too at SAA show. We did toadstools. Yes, do like painting a toadstool. Good morning. Are those pens waterproof? Two different kinds, Helen. So we had a waterproof one that made marks that don't move, and we used a water-soluble one. And I'm going to archive this film when we're done this morning so that you can go back and watch it again. And I'm also going to put a link to it on my blog too. And I'll tell you all about those things in just a second. Can I use a watercolour brush pen to draw trunks? Yes, absolutely. Loving the wiggle and flick. You make this look so easy, I'm sure it's not. just a little bit of practice, but don't worry about it, Karen. The most important thing when you're painting is that you're enjoying it, you're having fun, that you're getting away from some of the hideous things that are going on outside and you're just kind of in the zone. That's what's more important than anything. Good morning, Ali D. Thank you very much. Thank goodness it's raining today. I'll be doing this all day without feeling guilty. Good for you. Love this. People are putting rainbow emojis on. Thank you very much. Loving this, Ali. What would you do in the foreground of the portrait one, Sandra? I think she probably means this one, the one with the birch trees. I think, well, I've had a bit of a happy accident, and my husband would not be impressed because he doesn't like it when I say it's a happy accident. This, to me, looks a bit like a bluebell would. So I'm thinking that actually what I might do when I finish broadcasting is do a little bit more to this and maybe sprinkle some more violet Brusho in the foreground. And if that looks like bluebell wood, then that's good for me. So, good morning, Molly, you're a sweetheart. There's people saying, look, I'm going to put it up in the window. I do have someone to make a card for. Yes, Pat, you can watch this again later. I'll give you all the details in just a second. Jan, lovely Jan in Wales. I save all my glass spice pots, soak off the label and store my Brusho paints in those. Works great. What a fantastic, fantastic thing to share. Thank you very much. Right, well, just to wrap up this morning's Technique Tuesday, I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you know of anybody out there that you think might enjoy the project, do feel free to share it from the Facebook page. Like I said, it will archive there straight away, so you're very welcome to share it across anywhere. This is not a project that I demand to have any sort of attribution for. Share it. More important that we're painting at the moment than anything else. You can find it on my Alison Seaboard Facebook page. I'm going to share it over to my Learning to Paint with Alison Seaboard page as well. And if you are on any kind of social media, I have the same name on all my social media. So I am Ali Board Artist, and I'm on Twitter, Instagram, all sorts of places that you can find me. I do have a website. And the website has grown quite a lot, as you can imagine, in the last few weeks. So that's alisonseaboard-fineart.co.uk. And on there you'll find we've put some free reference photos up there at the moment that you are very welcome to download. No payment required. I took all the photos so that you can do whatever you like with them. There's the details about my next online painting day on there, which you can register your interest for. The tutorials, the live tutorials that I'm doing at the moment, where you pay a small contribution and you log into the Zoom platform and then we do a couple of hours painting together. They are all fully booked at the moment. But if you are interested, then please stick your name on the waiting list because people do drop out, situations change. I promise that there will be more dates. I promise that there will. I've just got quite a few things to juggle at the moment, and so I'm waiting to see when things are available. Oh, just seen my mum has popped in the room. Morning, mum. Don't forget my blog on my website. So there's a little drop down in the menu and it does say Ali's blog. You can see all of the Technique Tuesdays there. You can go back over. They've only been on my website for a short amount of time, but there's plenty of things on there. Please feel free to comment. Please do leave me. Don't ever think that it's daft to comment on any of the things that I do. I genuinely love to hear from you, love to have a chat with you. Nothing's ever too much trouble, I promise that. But I think the biggest piece of news that we've got at the moment is the very exciting artist demo days that we've got coming up. I am very honoured. You have no idea. I'm so honoured to be working with Denise Allen, Jeremy Ford, Ali Hargreaves, Sharon Hurst and Matthew Palmer. And on Facebook page, you'll find the group under Artist Demo Days on the 8th and 9th of May, which is the bank holiday weekend. So not this weekend coming, the weekend after, on the Friday and the Saturday. All 6 of us will be doing live demos throughout the day. I think I go first. I drew the short straw. And then all of us throughout the day, you'll find it on the events part of that page. You can go, we're doing so many things. And honestly, some of them are so exciting. Got Jeremy doing gouache, got Ali H doing mixed media. Sharon is sharing some really technical things about the 4 stages of watercolour. Matthew's doing one of his beautiful landscapes, and Denise is doing one of her amazing crashing waves in acrylic. So please do join us if you can. If you ever have any questions at all, you are very welcome to message me either through social media or via my website. But I hope very much that this has been a project that will get you kick-started if it's raining where you are today. Thanks very much for joining me. Take care, all of you, won't you? And I will see you next week for another Technique Tuesday. Take care, everybody. Bye.